Alrighty, everybody. What's up, goons? So, thank you everybody for coming. We have almost 3,000 people tuning in today, which is it's crazy, and it kind of blows my mind that so many goons showed up today. Thank you once again. And today, honestly, we have a really special one. My name is Phil. I also go by Phil on Discord. I lead community at Plume. So we do have a very special guest today. It is the one and only Chris, our co-founder and the CEO of Plume. Right? He's going to be here to talk about how we're not just bringing real world wealth on chain, but we want to reinvent what that means. And Chris, as you've said before, let me switch it. Chris, as you said before, right? Like me and you, we kind of go back and forth in private quite a bit. And it's about remixing finance into something new, right? Like I remember you say that we just don't want to copy TradFi and that we just slap it on the blockchain, right? So let's just start simple. Why should the average crypto user care about RWAs?
Of course. GM, good to see everybody today, and glad to spend some time talking to everybody. But look, let's definitely get into it. Look, the first question is, why should anyone care? Just like you said, right, Phil? And it's actually very simple. The reason you should care about RWAs is because you already care about RWAs, right? The number one product today in crypto today is an RWA, the stablecoin, right? And what we do today, unfortunately, is that's all we have, right? People use a stable coin. We are able to access the dollar this way. We're able to hold value. We're able to do all kinds of things with the stable coin today. And it's been able to unlock a tremendous amount of innovation and a tremendous amount of use cases, right? By being able to have a counter to highly volatile stuff in crypto, by having something that's able to be stable, composable, usable, all those kinds of things. Now, the problem is, that's the only thing you can do with it, right? It's very straightforward, right? It's very static, right? Very useful, but again, very one-dimensional, right? And so that's what we want to do. All we're doing with Plume here, right, is we're helping follow what people do in real life and following user behavior, right? In the real world today, right, when people are doing crypto stuff, when the markets are up, you want to hold tokens, and people do that today, and that's what they already do. When the market goes bad, which a little bit like today, right, what do most people do, right? They rotate into RWAs. Today, the problem is the only thing you can rotate into is the stablecoin, right? And so you hold the stablecoin, you do nothing with it, and then that's really it. So all we're doing is expanding the surface area in which you can interact with the real world. And when you rotate and do these things in and out, now you have options, you have choices, right? Which means that then you can not only pick different things to hold, but now you can earn yield against them. Maybe you can speculate on things like that. Maybe you can put them into DeFi, right? And be able to loop, earn, stake, lend, borrow, whatever you want to do with these things at the same time. And that begins to blur the lines between what happens when you're holding crypto native assets and real world assets, right? Just like what the stablecoin did for these assets and for the US dollar, right? The stablecoin is just another tool that we have in crypto, right? That we can use when the markets are good, bad, ugly, or whatever you want to do, right? And all we're doing is adding more tools to that toolbox. And so this way we have a do together here. Onchain.
Awesome. Yeah, no, honestly, it sounds like the way I kind of look at stablecoins is it's almost like the phase one of crypto. It's almost like the email of crypto, right? And in Plume, we're looking to see if we can try to build like the smartphone of crypto. It's maybe it's a bad analogy, but let's just like look at the RWA market like
Yes.
as a whole, right? So RWA's market is a $400 trillion market with a T, right? And Chris, you were just saying, I've heard you say before that bringing real estate and stocks on chain isn't just the end game. What's missing from how people talk about RWAs today?
Yeah, totally. Look, I think this slide, right? One is it's a little ugly. I really want to do it. I really want to redo this thing to make it a little better. But more importantly, look, this slide is the most important piece of the RWA story, which is at the end of the day, The opportunity and the market size for RWAs is one of the biggest that exists anywhere. And the important thing here is this: RWAs today, or even you can look at this, right? Crypto today is, like we see here, a $3 trillion asset class, of which maybe 1.5 to 2 of it is BTC. Right. And so the kind of like smart contract layer, the programmable stuff, the sort of like internet money and all this, right, is even less. Let's call it 1 trillion, maybe 1.5. Right. The thing we always forget is that, like, in TradFi or in the real world, um, BlackRock, right, and Larry Fink, that firm alone is a $12 trillion asset manager, right? And so one single firm is bigger than all of crypto by not just a little bit, but 3 or 4 times larger, right? Let alone all the other subsets. When we talk about RWA, the real world assets, it means all of these things, right? We have things like you said, like there's real estate, right? There's derivatives, there's equities, right? There's collectibles, right? There's Pokemon cards, watches, sneakers, art, all these kinds of things. The entire universe of all these assets becomes, when you're able to put this on chain, it'll grow crypto by several orders of magnitude, right? And that's ultimately the thing that matters here. And the thing that's interesting about all this, right? We can actually take not only these assets and make them much better, right? But we can really grow the size of crypto, and that's the orientation for Plume. You'll hear this over and over when we talk about Plume and crypto. Is look, most people are just trying to grow their own token or grow their own network or grow their own ecosystem. We started Plume with one very simple goal: we wanted to grow all of crypto. Right. And that's why on day one, we have something like Skylink. Skylink is our bridge program, right? That makes you easy to connect with Plume on other ecosystems on day one, right? Because this is our goal. This chart is the basis of why we started this project and what we want to do with it. We want to make everything in crypto better. We want to make everything in crypto bigger, right? And as a result, Plume grows as well, right? It just is the difference between us and everyone else out there. And so anyway, this is the important thing right here. Now, just like you said, Phil, I think the one thing that's important for us to remember here, how we view the world, it's not as simple as just taking this stuff on the left, these off-chain assets, these reward assets, and just slapping them on chain and carbon copying and putting them on chain. That's not what we're trying to do, right? What we're trying to do is make an easy way to access those assets, right? And every time you take something, right, there's two ways to sort of mold products, right? Number one is you can actually physically take the exact same thing and put it into the new paradigm, right? You can take, for example, email, right, which is something people did on the desktop a lot when they were at work, right? And when the mobile phone came out, you can literally put that same thing on the phone and you can still do email, right? But it turns out that's not actually the best way to communicate with people once you have the mobile phone, right? It's actually text messaging and SMS became much more popular. Telegram became much more popular, right? WhatsApp, all these things out there, because the form factor for mobile changed a lot, right? And the use case changed a lot. It no longer became a very formal, boring, sort of like one-to-one, right? We wanted real-time communication, you wanted reactions, you wanted things like that. It became short messages, it became a different type of use case, right? And you still did the same thing. It was about communicating with other people, but the form changed a lot, right? You no longer email. You now just send messages. I send gifts. I send images. I send all those kinds of things, right? It's a very different thing. It's the exact same thing here, right? What we're taking is these real assets, right? And we're not just going to say, let's just take real estate and put it on chain, right? So now I can do the exact same thing on chain. I can go to quote unquote the bank and I can like get a loan and I can then put this thing out and then go buy this house and then pay my mortgage once a month, right? It's not about doing that. What we are trying to do, right? Say, when you ultimately take this house, or you take art, or you take watch, or you take equities, or you take the USR, whatever, when you take this and put it on chain, right? It changes it as well, right? And you want to mold it and fix it into a crypto native experience, right? Ultimately, you're building a product for that market. You want to take advantage also of the contours of the new technology, right? And what do we do in crypto today? The important things are what? Permissionless, right? What we care about here are being able to access things very, very easy and simply. It's open, meaning anyone can build, anyone can use, anyone can try these things. And more importantly, it's composable, right? You can use it all around everything, all around crypto, right? And that's how we think about these assets, right? We really want to make sure that things are usable, it feels crypto, right? And again, we always say this a lot, right? When RWs are done correctly, right? They cease to be RWAs, they just become crypto, right? And the best example, again, is the stablecoin, right? The stablecoin today, right? nobody thinks of it as an RWA. You think of it as a stable coin, or more importantly, you think of it as a great example of crypto, not a great example of an RWA, right? It's a great example of how you onboard people, how you can use crypto, and how you can explain to people. That's, it's the best way today to grow crypto, in addition to things like meme coins and others, right? And so that's how we think about this. There's so many great things that come together with the RWAs. It's the market size, right? It's the actual use case, right? And the potential here for us to do new things. Having the stable coin unlocked all of DeFi for us, because now you could actually hold value, you could earn in different ways. Right? And then third, it's really this onboarding story, right? We can really grow this market and really bring a lot of net new people in and bring new use cases and bring new markets to light. And so this is why we think this is a really, really important part of not just Plume, but all of crypto. And that's why I think we're seeing the excitement for RWAs today in the market, right? Because people are realizing that no matter what, up, down, left, right in crypto, the one thing that is happening, right, is the RWAs are slowly marching through, and they are coming on chain and bringing more and more people in every single day. And they're realizing it's become a point where you can't ignore it anymore. And people are realizing this is a real force that is going to help crypto and help us grow, regardless of what's going on.
Man, so I really love what you said, especially when you say just, when RWs come on a chain, they just become crypto, right? So I just kind of wanted to riff off that a little bit, right? And from what I can understand, banks are already building apps to the iPhone. That's TradFi, and Plume is letting anybody kind of remix their assets. So right, so
That's right.
Say I can tokenize my house. Say I tokenize my house on Plume. Let's just pretend that I'm wealthy enough in America to afford my own house, and now that I have a house and this is not a digital deed, right?
Yep.
It's suddenly composable, right? I'm just curious, what are some of the crazy things I could do with it that you would probably say it's impossible off chain, but we at Plume have unlocked new assets for you and your house, Phil, on chain.
Totally. Like, what can you do with your house today in the real world, right? Nothing.
Yeah,
you live in it and you pay your bills. That's it, right? Now, what can you do when it's a token? That's how I think about it, right? I think the basis of all this is that the token is a superior UX and a superior format to hold different things, because everyone understands the token. You hold it, it's easy to use, you can move it, you can change it, you can do whatever you want to do, right? So let's say you have a house represented in the form of a token, right? Now you can cut this thing up in a million ways. A bunch of things you can do with it that you couldn't do before. One is if I wanted to just take like one tiny fraction of my house, right? Just the tile of the roof, right? And sell that, right? Or take out a loan against that thing and begin to earn some yield. That's one thing that I could do, right? Number two, what can you do in the real world, right? There's no way for me to live in my house and also capture some value from it being here, right? Meaning allow some way to earn yield against it. With crypto, with a token now, you can see a world. I can put this into an LP pool, right? And I can earn some yield against this thing, right? You can also bake in other ways of having other people hold this. You can cut this thing into a million pieces, right? You can add this to another pool and it becomes part of another structured product, right? So there's all those things you can do with this different with this token, and how you can sort of mold and change what we're doing here, right? I think always another example that's always useful that I always think about is when you think about equities, right? When you're buying stocks, as a very simple example as well, right? What can you do today, right? You can log on, right, between the hours of 9 to 5 p.m., right, wherever you are in the world, and go to your exchange and you can buy some stocks. Number one, the tricky thing to do with stocks today is you can only access whatever's in your region, and you had to KYC to get that, right? So you're both region constrained, right? You're time constrained, right? Excuse me. And that's ultimately the issue, right? And so that's kind of the starting point. And so look, as a very simple fact, by putting it on chain and making this accessible to everybody, right? Now, everybody in the world can hold Tesla shares, right? If they wanted to, in any time of the day, right? That's a starting point. And that's the thing that we all know, right? I think the more interesting thing is now that's really just, again, putting the real world on chain. That's a good example. You can see that just by doing that, it's actually gotten a little bit better, right? Because now anyone across the world can get it, right? It's actually changed a little bit in a subtle way because now you have access from a time perspective all over the place, right? That's not something that's done today, right? Now, the more interesting thing to do is like, what would you want to be able to do? If I'm holding a bunch of Tesla, what is a crypto native way to do this thing, right? What does everyone do when they hold the asset? Let's stake this thing and start earning some yield, right? And so what if you could take your Tesla shares and now you can stake them, right? Or the Tesla shares are represented by a token. I can stake the token and now earn some yield in the form of more Tesla, right? Like something you can't do in the real world, right? And that's how you begin to blur the lines between crypto and the real world, right? Because now, excuse me, by doing this, right, you begin to earn yield against this thing. You can make this asset productive while you're still holding it, right? What happened on the other side, right? One, maybe it's in the lending market and getting lent out and people can borrow by it and you're earning yield, right? Maybe it's into an LP pool, right? And you can trade against this thing and you're earning fees that way, and fees in the form of Tesla. And so there are many ways under the hood, right, for you to make more money on this asset or accrue more Tesla. But to you, it's just staking. Right? If you want to lend out and borrow and then go gamble on shitters, you can do that too, right? That's the ultimate idea, right? Is you can kind of see in this example that like today there is no concept of staking a token, right, or staking an equity, right, and earning more of that, right? In crypto, we do it all the time, right? It's a natural part of this thing, right? That's what we wanted. It's a hugely very common use case, right? And so that's kind of ultimately what this is, right? And that to me is what ultimately brings people in to crypto, right? You want to take things that are accessible, that things are understandable, and things that are different, right? Excuse me, and things that people already know how to interact with equities, but you have to change them again to fit the form and take again. One, it's not only to fit the audience, right? Because again, we understand and know staking, right? So if you told someone you can stake your equities on chain, right? And the crypto native audience just like knows what to do exactly. You don't have to explain it to them, right? Like that's something we understand and get. So you want to format it for the audience. That's the first piece, right? But not only that, right? It becomes a great bridge in because now someone who's completely off chain or doesn't know anything about crypto, right, can come in and recognize this asset and understand. Okay, great. I know what Tesla is. I know what Tesla shares are. This is great. I'm open to it. But like, if that's it, why the hell would anyone do it? I could go buy Tesla shares on Robinhood, right, or on Coinbase, right? So that's why you have to make it better and make it different, right? And make it something you can't do in the real world, right? And when you tell someone in the real world, well, if you're really bullish Tesla, if you're just sitting there holding Tesla shares, what's the point, right? You should be able to do something what we can call crypto. You can stake it. You can earn more Tesla passively while doing that because you're making it productive now. Now it's something you can't do, right? And now people, if you're already bullish Tesla, like, well, shit, man, I might as well be able to do that. Like, I'm not doing anything today, right? So I should go and figure out how to do this, right? I can jump through the hoops, download MetaMask or download Phantom or whatever, figure out this fucking wallet situation and try and make this whole thing work. And now that you have access to this thing, they're going to get excited about it. So that's how we think about it. And it's a very small example, right? But it is an example of how when the world becomes tokens, right? The line between crypto and RWAs blend together, right? And not only that, the asset itself gets transformed by becoming an on-chain thing. That's why today, right, when a lot of these RWA projects or RWA use cases end up resembling the TradFi thing, it's not to say it's bad. Those are fine, right? Again, I can access, Xfinity or PG&E or Congo or my bank on my phone today as I would on the desktop. It is a carbon copy of the real world put on chain, right? But into new technology. But that's not how you lead, right? And that's not the first use case. And that's why a lot of those projects, right, initially had trouble, adopting things. And that's why the last cycle we had things like Maple and Centrifuge and Goldfinch, great projects and great friends of ours, right? And we've learned a lot from them. And we still work with many of them today. But that's why that first wave, right, those folks that pioneered a lot of this for us, right, those folks had trouble with the use case because they brought a TradFi use case to the to the crypto world, right? But the crypto world wants crypto use cases, right? And so nobody, the question is always like, how many people here actually KYC'd, go through the whole process, QP'd, and made eligible to go buy OUSG, right, on this T-bill product, right? Or to go buy BIDL, or to actually use these things, right? And the answer is always zero. I have never done it either, right? Because who the hell wants to KYC and buy this thing? I can already get it today, right? I can just go buy DAI. If I want access to the treasury today, I can go buy DAI or USDS or whatever, right? And get my SDAI, and I'm staking, I'm earning yield that way, right? It's the exact same thing. And that's another great example of it happening right in front of our eyes, right? DAI today has SDAI, or now it's USDS, I guess, right? And you can earn yield against these things, treasury yield, but it feels like crypto. It's just a stable coin. I stake it and I get more yield. And that product has hundreds of thousands of users, right? Whereas BIDL has 50. And a very different profile. So anyway, that's how we think about this, and that's why this is important.
Okay. So my next question, right, for you, right? How is Plume different from other solutions out there? For me, it sounds like we are the turnkey solution, right? But what does that feel like for the users? Like, if I'm a Brazil, okay, maybe not a Brazil. If I'm a Chinese uncle, right, or like a DeFi degen, how does Plume make my life easier? How are we different?
Yeah, totally. Um, no matter what you're trying to do, right? If you're off to Onchain, look, at the end of the day, I think what we do is this: we build a bunch of tools and software and technology to make this easy for end users, right? And anybody in crypto to get access to the real world, right? The way I think about it is this. What is the RWA story today? What do most people think about when they think about RWAs, right? It's a lot of this very trad stuff, right? You think about maybe T-bills, right? Maybe it's a BlackRock thing, right? Maybe you think about sort of Wall Street, right? And banking and all these kinds of things, right? That's not what we're doing, right? It doesn't mean that we don't have that, right? We've raised money from many of the best ones out here. We've talked to them. We have many of them as partners, and they're great. And we work with them all. All I'm saying is that's a small part of what we do, right? And most people are only focused on that. What we want to do, right? I think, again, our team comes from crypto, right? And so we think about this in just a more crypto native way. And we think about this in the way that we would want to use it ourselves, right? It's not about going to TradFi or going to Wall Street. I never think about TradFi or Wall Street in that context. What I do though is, I used to play a game called Farmville, right? And I used to play in COVID. I played Animal Crossing, right?
Love
And when I was
Animal
a kid, I
Crossing.
played The Sims. Right, exactly. And what do we do with these things, right? You click buttons, right? You have a screen, and it's a visual thing where you can see a plot of land, you can see a world, and you can begin to build your world that way by clicking buttons. You can interact with your friends that way, right? You can build your garden, right? You can sort of earn, you can farm and earn points and all this kind of stuff. You can trade. And when I think about, farm to Animal Crossing or what is it, like ultimately I clicked buttons, right? And you begin to build this sort of empire for yourself, right? And you ultimately had, in The Sims, you could own, like roller coasters and have a corporate building, and then, or maybe like own a farm, and then maybe have some oil wells or like horses or whatever it is, right? But you clicked buttons, and if you did it right, that would continue to grow and become larger. What we're trying to do, right, with Plume is build that exact same thing. Except the one difference is in those games when you clicked buttons, right? They just produced more pixels on a screen, right? But because we have the blockchain today, right, and we have crypto, and you can that's a portal that basically turns these two things in. So now, right, when you come to Plume and you click on these buttons, right, you're actually doing the exact same thing, except this time when you click a button to sort of buy a house, instead of just like producing a sort of digital house in Farmville, right? You're actually owning a real house in the real world somewhere now. It's producing real yield and real dollars and real cash generation, right? That's the idea. We build this tie and this portal to the real world, but make sure that it's easy to use and interact with from a crypto native perspective, right? Where I click buttons and things in the real world move, right? I'm able to buy things, I'm able to swap, I'm able to rotate things, I'm able to make them productive, right? And it comes a sort of remote control, right, for the entire world through this screen, right? And the UI is different. It's not the same thing. It's not an avatar where I'm walking around and doing my thing, right? Although you'll see when mainnet comes, we do have things like that as well, right? But like the idea is really to sort of make it easy for people to interact with the world. And so how does that make it better for the average person, right? It means anybody in the world now can access anything in the world on chain anytime, right? That's the idea, right? And it's not even just buying things, right? It's about understanding and having access to any suite of things around the world, right? So, we have all these things that RWA often gets lumped into like, oh, I can go buy this house now somewhere, right? That's not what anyone thinks about. I've never thought about buying a house in Mexico or the Philippines, or I have a house, and then like I live in it and that's it. And maybe over time I can have some investment properties or whatever, things like that, right? But it's a different thing, versus, what everyone does though, is everyone has opinions about the world, and usually in financial terms, right? You think that, hey, look, I think that, um, you know, Americans like going to shit, or Americans going up. Who knows, right? We think these things are great, or we don't think it's good, right? Or you think maybe this particular thing in pop culture is good or bad, right? You think like Dua Lipa is like having a great moment, and there's a lot in front of her, it's going to be great, or you think it's not going to be great, right? And it's going downwards, right? And so, today there's no way to express these ideas, right? And so all we want to do again is you want to make it easy to interact with the world on chain. So what do people do today, right? You probably find some proxy for it, right? Or you can flip up a deck screener, right? And try and find the latest contract for some shitter that is related to this thing, right? but that's not how we should be doing things, right? Again, if you look at WorldCoin today, right? WorldCoin today is a representation of Sam Altman, right? It's a very useful product for some in but at the end of the day, the token is a representation of Sam Altman. So if you wanted to speculate or have exposure to Sam Altman, right, who's the founder of OpenAI and the founder of WorldCoin, right, you could just buy the WorldCoin token, right? And so you can see how WorldCoin tracks exactly the Sam Altman news. When Sam gets fired from OpenAI, right, the WorldCoin token dumps. When he gets rehired, it pumps, right? When Sora 2.0, the new language model comes out, it pumps again, right? And so you can see how that tracks exactly the same, because that's what people want. People are dying for a way to use and interact with the world. They want SAM exposure, but they don't know how to get it. And the only way we can is through WorldCoin today. The problem is, it's a very messy way to get SAM exposure. You have to go through WorldCoin. It's like a whole thing. You should just be able to get direct SAM exposure, right? And same thing with NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA today, right, is really just broad AI exposure, right? If you're bullish AI, you just buy NVIDIA, right, for many people, right? You don't have access to OpenAI's private stock. You don't have access to a bunch of GPUs somewhere. You don't have ability to participate in AI in other ways, right? The other day, Studio Ghibli, right? Like, if you saw all these images, you should have been long AI, or you should have been long Miyazaki, right? And so all these things together, really kind of showcase that people are trying to interact with the world in all kinds of ways, both speculative and both fundamental and foundational, right? Where you're earning yield, you're doing real things, or you're just trying to play around and have a good time, right? And speculate and make calls in different positions on what's going on there, right? And so that's what we want to do here, right? We want to make it easier for anyone to understand how to do these things and how to sort of take the road and put it on chain. And again, it's not just by taking the asset and putting it on chain. We can tokenize concepts, right? We can tokenize all kinds of different things. And the idea, again, we're very focused on this net new use case, right? We can do the same thing that we do in the real world on chain day on Plume. It's for sure going to be a thing. But the interesting thing, I think that's going to make it more fun, is the net new use case, right? Tokenizing things like, like tokenizing like Chinese food as an example, or chow mein, right? If you think Chinese food, I've, for one's worth, thought, I always think that every culture's food has like a moment in the sun across the whole world, right? For example, Mexican food, several years ago became a huge, was a whole thing. They had a moment in this Mexican food to every country now, right? And then you also remix these things. And so I've always thought like Chinese food's going to have its moment of the day. We're going to we're going to put like chow mein into burrito. It's going to be huge, right? And it's going to happen. Like, you should be able to bet on that and speculate on it, right? In some way, and say, look, I'm just going to live long Chinese food, but there's no way to do that today, right? In a clean way, right? And so it's not only just taking things like tokenized stocks, tokenized equities, right? So, or art, or cars, or watches, or wine, or whiskey, all these things. It's not just about putting it on chain to make it useful, right? But it's taking even ideas and concepts and things that relate to the real world, right? And pulling those things on chain as well. And again, putting them all into the form of a token, right? And a crypto native UX, right? You should be able to, in that box that we all know, right? The swap box, where you take one token and you swap to another, and you hit yes or no, right? Or the 1 second or 1 minute charts, right? Where you're looking at a chart going up or down, left, right, and there's a long, short, and a leverage button. That's the interface that we know, and that's what we're familiar with, right, in crypto, right? If that's how we do things, we should take the entire world and put it into that. So no matter what I want to do, I can come in and swap for it. No matter what I want to do, right? Even not swapping, I can just take out a huge level long or a short on this thing, right? And that's how I want to make this thing work. And that provides way more dynamicism to crypto, but it allows people to do things you could never do before, right? And when there's new tools and new way to access things and new primitives in the world for people, right? Generally, people make and create awesome things and do new things that you couldn't do before. Right. Again, the stable coin is a perfect example. By simply putting the US dollar on chain and make it useful for crypto natives, right? The US dollar itself has been able to go all across the world and help so many people in so many different ways, right? Especially in places where your currency is unstable and things are going up and down, you're unable to hold value, right? We really make it easy through just a stable coin. Now you can swap into the US dollar in a way you couldn't do before, right? The stat I always use, turns out there's more $100 bills, US dollar bills, outside of the country, outside of the US, in pillowcases, right? Or under the mattress or whatever, right? There's more of that than there are single dollar bills in the US in circulation, right? Meaning the US dollar, the $100 bill in the US is, for a lot of people, the way to hold value and the way to actually, hold on to money and keep things safe, right? But it's a piece of paper. It's hard to access. It's hard to hold. It's dangerous. You should just be able to, again, go to that screen and swap in and out of this thing, That's the UI that we care about, right? And that's the way we should do things. That's how crypto's great. So anyway, I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, I love that. I do love how the way you make it sound. Plume is honestly just nah. Let's just cut the noise. You wanna bet on Taylor Swift or Snoop Dogg's next tour? Fuck it, do it. You want to tokenize a skyscraper? That's fine. You want to farm yield on a Pokemon card, which some people on our team are really into Pokemon. I only found that out about recently, right? So while everybody else here is kind of trading on Sam Altman's employment status, we're here to make it so you can actually trade the actual world, right? And just permissionless, like you said, open, just way more fun, honestly.
100%. Exactly.
Yeah, so like kind of diving into the next section here. I first off, I kind of want to hear you geek out a little bit on the tech. You already mentioned Skylink and stuff earlier, right? Like
Yep.
Plume has Arc, and we have Nest, and we have like a superhero like full stack set. It's almost like a superhero team for RWS. I love the Avengers, but like Chris, what is the secret weapon that you don't think that people talk about enough for us, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think, look, part of the reason why we don't talk about it as much is at the end of the day, right? What we care about is the use case. We care about, the the thing I always think about is the individual person, right? Whoever they are, anywhere across the world using these things. And if that's the case, you shouldn't really care too much about this stuff. And so that's what we focus on. And this ends up falling by things. But like filter detection, very important, right? And if we do this right, all this stuff also comes to surface because this allows us to interact with RWAs in a new way. So I'll get to that in a second. But the starting point is this, right? A full stack RWA chain means that not only do we have an EVM chain that we then customize to make it useful, excuse me, and fit it for RWAs, we build tools and software around it to make it easy, right? And I always think about it this way, right? What we've built is a machine that converts the real world, right, into tokens again, right? And when they turn into tokens, they land on Plume, right, on our chain itself. Now, this machine that turns things into tokens starts with the actual tokenization, right? That's what we do, right? And that's what ARC is, right? ARC is our product that it's really more asset issuer facing, right? But if you have some asset, right, maybe it's cars or Pokemon cards or equities or whatever, and you want to put this on chain, right? Think of ARC as a conversion engine, right? I put this thing in there, right? It'll walk you through the steps, right, in a very modular, straightforward, easy way. It's a very complicated thing mostly, right? It can be very expensive and very tricky, right? We've done this in the very modular. You can do it however you want, but we make it easy for you to come here, right, and take this thing and put it into crypto and turn this into tokens. So that's what ARC is, right? We also work with all the other tokenization products out there as well. There's many of them, right? And they're all great for their own reasons. It's a huge market, right? We built ARC as a way to complement those things, right? Because there's so many use cases, right? But we're always happy for anyone to use anything they want. If you want to use, for example, Securitize is a very popular one, right? The problem with Securitize is it costs, a tremendous amount of money, right? $7 million, $8 million to use it, right? So that prices out 99% of the market. So if you want to use Securitize, go for it. They're partners of ours. We love to use it. We love to work with them. It's all great, right? But if you can't afford it or you don't want to, or there's other things out there, use ARC. We give it to you for free. And again, this is for us building tools to make it easy for the community in the world to do things, right? That's number one. Number two, the thing that people forget a lot is once you bring an asset on chain, right, you have to bring the data on chain, right, about the asset, right? If you're bringing real estate on chain, you've got to be able to sample and pull the data around the price of that asset over and over on chain, right? And it turns out the existing oracles are not really optimized for that use case. They don't do that very well today, right? And so it doesn't mean that that's bad, right? And we don't work with them. Again, a lot of them are changing and doing things. We have friends our friends at Chronicle who just raised 12 million, right? Very, very strong folks. We have our friends at Chaos, our friends at CEDAR, our friends at eOracle, our friends at Chainsight. All of them are beginning to do a lot of stuff here, right? And so we're really happy with that. But similar to ARC, right, what we do is we focus on making sure it's easy to access that on chain, right? And we build some tools to also pull the real world data on chain, right? And so that's why you can use both. So if you want to gamble and you want to do anything on Plume, right, you can do two things. One, I can own the underlying asset, right? I want to buy this Pokemon card, right? I want to buy this Charizard. Great, right? Some of the other side can go there and own the card, tokenize it, turn it into a token, and now I can purchase it and buy it on OpenSea or Magic Eden or on Blur or whatever it, right? I can swap into this thing, right? The other side of it is if I wanted to take out like, and then the other side is like if I wanted to take out like a position on it, I want to level long. I'm just bullish on this chart. I think it's going up, right? Logan Paul is going to do another boxing match. He's going to talk about it. It's going to go up, right? If we're going to do that, right? I can also just take out a position. I can just go to my latest perp stakes. You go to cultured or any of the ones that we have, right? And you can take out a 20x level long on it, right? And they can say, look, like, cool. I think the chart. I think the sort of relevance for this is going to go up. And just push a button, make it happen. That's what Nexus does. Empowers, right? And of course, those things are mixed together. Nexus also helps bring in the data for the underlying asset for the Oracle as well, if you want to own the underlying. But you can do both, right? And that allows this world to come into play in a much more simple way, right? It's the reason why it ultimately will become important, and we hope it's important for everyone as well, is because today when you want to build in the RWA world, right? One of the great things about crypto and the regular crypto world is anybody can build. Anybody can do anything. Right. Today, if I want to access and build some new protocol, I can. I push buttons and I come in here and I can do that. No one can tell me yes or no. Right. Just like the tokens are permissionless, building is also permissionless. Right. And that's why you have this innovation in crypto that outpaces everything in the real world. That's why in the real world, when you have all these regulations and all these rules and all this nonsense, things like healthcare, things like education, things like transportation, all these things still feel like shit. They still suck. Because there's so much root, nobody can build, nobody can fix it, nobody can make it better, right? Only a certain set of people can do that, right? But in the digital world, right, when you can do whatever you got to do, we've seen the pace of things relentlessly change. Because if somebody hates something or wants to make it better, they just do it, right? And that can happen anywhere, anytime, all the world from anybody, right? So you have someone who's 12 years old, right, in the Middle East or something, right? Who's just like, you know what, fuck this, I want to make a better version. And it's there tomorrow, right? And if it works, everyone uses it. It's incredible, right? And you see the same thing in crypto, right? And for the first time, by tokenizing everything, right, we allow people to take these things and change them and make them better, right? And do whatever you have to do. This permissionless innovation is a huge unlock, not for us, but for all society, right? And the problem is today, when you want to interact and build with RWAs, you can't really do that unless you have the asset, right? Because you have to first tokenize the thing. Right? If I wanted to change it, or I want to build something that involves real estate, I want to build something that involves Pokemon cards, I want to build something that involves equities, I have to first go through this process of actually bringing this whole thing on chain, right? I actually go find someone who's got a bunch of Pokemon cards and is willing to do this and willing to go through the process of custodying the asset and making it reliable and holding it and putting it on chain and making people buy it. It's a whole process, right? If I want to bring real estate, I got to go find someone with a bunch of houses who want to put it on chain. It's a whole thing. You can't actually build an RWAs. That's the problem, unless you have this asset. And that reduces the universe of builders from this huge pool, anybody in the world, just like in crypto and software today, down to nothing, right? And usually people with all these assets are not really engineers either, right? Or they're not builders, they're not people, they don't understand these things, right? So it really, really limits and it creates it's an adverse selection problem, right? And so what we do, right, is by building these tools as well, we hope to make it easier for anyone and anyone to build and come and interact with these things. If you have an asset, just come here, click buttons, put it on chain into tokens, right? If you want to, as a builder, then on the other side, I should have a broad array of tokens that represent real things that I can now fuck with and do whatever I want, right? Or two, if it hasn't been tokenized, I can come to Nexus and pick data feeds and just choose what's going on here, right? I want to be able to interact with, I want to be able to create an index that tracks the popularity and sentiment of America, right? As a simple example. So what do I need? I need GDP. Right. I need crime rate, I need CPI, I need sentiment, I need news, all these things. I pick a couple of things, I weight them in different ways, and I create a chart against this thing. And now you have a line that goes up and down that tracks to my opinion of how the world works, right? And that allows you now to build something that represents the real world, right? Just by using your knowledge without having to build things, right? And that ultimately takes so much of the world and puts it on chain, and then begins to again open this panel, right, for people to permissionless build and innovate against RWA. So that's what I think is really important and exciting about this. What we're going to continue to build a lot here, right? And today, again, we focus, and I focus a lot on the end user. How do we make it easy to use? But over time, what we'll probably expose more and more of this to people, because we do want people to begin to experiment and build and do whatever they want, right? And that will really, increase the amount of innovation in RWAs by an order of magnitude.
So everything you said, number one, I love it. But number two, I'm kind of it's just still funny how I'm just hearing about like your example, the Charizard, dude. Everybody claims they had that first edition Charizard they pulled when they were a kid, right? They're like, oh, I had one. I promise I had one, right? And but just to hear you say that, like, we tokenize it in a few clicks, Nexus proves that it's the real deal, and the fact that you gave an example of taking out like a 20x leverage long on like your own Charizard. It's either like the most genius thing or like the most degen thing I've heard like all week. And honestly, I love it. I really do love it. So kind of moving into the next section here, right? With our partnerships and the traction that we have. We have a lot of heavyweight partners on this. You know, we have like Goldfinch, Solera, Easy Labs, otherwise known as like Binance, that rebranded recently. You know, is there anything that has made you like particularly do a fist pump recently or anything like that? A lot of the goons are always excited, right? Like we have one of the strongest communities out there, but like which one,
Definitely.
you know, made you like, fuck yes?
I mean, the two things that I was really excited about for what it's worth, maybe a couple things, but you know, one of them that I was really excited about was working with Goldfinch. You know, because one, you know, we've seen, you know, we've known Goldfinch forever. You know, when before we started doing RWAs, you know, I looked around and looked at a bunch of the different projects out there, and like Goldfinch was one of theirs that sort of led the way and pioneered a bunch of stuff in RWAs. Right. And so it was just an honor to get to know them and learn from them and see what they were building. So that's one I was really excited about. Right. But number two, right, is then also seeing what they were doing, right, and seeing how that our sort of vision and our approach and take on the world had aligned, and we have a very similar take on things. And so not only just like, you know, for us, and also Goldfinch is a bird, Plume, we have bird logos, right? It's like it's the easiest thing in the world, right? Both of us, you know, we should definitely be working together because we're just two birds in RWAs, right? But like even more tangibly, right, on the Goldfinch side of things, what they're doing now is they built a way to permissionlessly access for the retail community any single thing that happens in the real world, especially as it relates to these huge asset managers, right? They have things like, you know, the Apollo private credit fund, they've got Ares as private credit funds, right? These are the biggest asset managers in the world, right? And the reason why that's important is that these assets generally, right, are safe, stable, liquid, and high yielding, right? You know, doing things in RWAs can be tricky because if you don't know what's on the other side, right, it creates it's a trust thing, right? You don't know, is it really there? Are you going to get rugged by it or not, right? That's why we invest in two stable coins today, right? You have Tether and you've got USDC for the most part, right? There's many others now that are becoming very important as well, but that's why the basis of this is because we trusted them, right? To a degree, right? Shout out Tether, right? And so like, but they never let us down. Right. And then we ultimately did trust these, right? And that's how you have to build these things. And so for them, they're starting with these. So let's find these places that we know and we can use their reputation as a proxy for the quality of the asset, right? So you can do it from there. And so we just found them to be, you know, both like, I think the asset itself is really exciting, right? To be able to hold the, you know, one of the largest asset managers, the strongest asset managers in the world, and be able to hold their asset, right, through crypto and through a permissionless way, through Goldfinch is, I think, it's a huge problem, is a huge thing. Right. Of course, the next one, right, is a combination of two things. I think Layer Zero plus, you know, really ultimately Binance, you know, and Binance and YZI Labs. You know, the story there is very simple, right? Again, going back to that first statement, right? Our orientation is to grow crypto, right? We want to make crypto as big as possible, and we think one piece of that is RWAs, right? I wanted to be as many tokens as humanly possible, but do all kinds of stuff. But one part of it is we're not RWA maxis at Plume, right? That's the one thing you also see, right? We love RWAs, right? At the end of the day, it's about everything. We want RWAs and crypto to live and coincide and be used simultaneously, right? And so Layer Zero, both of these are investors and also partners of ours, right? But from a Layer Zero perspective, you know, they we're one of their early partners. We're also one of their first investments out of their LZ Catalyst program, which is just how they invest in promising ecosystem projects. But you know, from there, we built this project called Skylink, right? And this product, excuse me, called Skylink, which allows us to connect to all the different ecosystems, right? Again, there's 17 of them on day one that we're working with. You know, folks like the Solana folks, right? Shout out Solana, they're a great ecosystem and great team and great project, right? And now, if you're on Solana, you can get access to real yields through Plume. right? You can also get the Plume token as well, right? To just show that we live and use this stuff all the time, right? So that's the first piece. Number two, right, is not only just being able to connect Plume to other things, right? The reason why the Binance, investment, right, and the YZI investment is important is because it also shows our commitment to other ecosystems, right, and other regions, right? Binance is heavy and strong in Asia, right? They've got BNB chain, right, and also, it's one of the biggest sexes in the world, right? And so, through that relationship, we're really, working with, again, the leaders in all of crypto, right? Not just in a particular space, right? And helping shape the future of what we can do here, right? So Binance is both very strong from a, from a, excuse me, from a sort of financial perspective, right? And so there's a lot that we can do there. They have a ton of influence and access to projects and a lot of influence in certain regions as well, right? And so, partnering with them, right, both bringing yields to places like BNB or Binance or whatever it might be, and allowing those folks to access RWAs, but also to have them bring their assets to us as well, right? And the users to us, and ultimately have Plume, able to be interacted with through that ecosystem. Huge stuff. So, those are huge distribution points for us in partnerships, where again, it shows the core principle for what we're doing, right? It's about growing crypto and bringing this everywhere versus just trying to bring everyone to our little ecosystem, right? In our world, right? We're trying to make it easy to use and interact Plume all over the place and grow all of crypto, because if we do this right, all of crypto grows, and then Plume grows massively as a result as well. But we all win, right? Versus it being focused on just us winning.
I love that. I love how everybody's part of this journey, and I genuinely think that mentality goes far in a space like this. Like, everybody working together really builds a much brighter future, right? And so, speaking of future, thank you for the segue. Where's Plume headed, Chris? You gave me some great examples earlier about like the future facing things. So like let's just narrow it down, like in the next year, right? Like in the next year, where's Plume headed? Where do you see it in the next 1 year, 3 year, and maybe 5 year? Because 5 years in crypto is basically equivalent to like 50 years, right? So what are your thoughts? Anything you could share with us?
Yeah, totally. Look, I think we'll go back to the principles, and then we'll go back, and then we'll talk, and then we can dive into something more tangible that's useful, right? The core principles for Plume are to grow crypto and to blend the real world and crypto together. So if we think about that, right, what we want to do is we want to turn the real world into tokens, right? And so there's multiple steps and phases to that. But ultimately, right, I want to make it easy, and we want to make it easy for everybody in crypto to be able to click buttons and touch and interact with anything they want that comes from both, the real world, right, but also crypto stuff, and bounce back and forth seamlessly between that, right, and follow the behavior we all do today, right? I can live in crypto and I can go outside, do the things I got to do at the same time, right, and also have these all blend together. It's all one world that we live in, right? So that's what we're trying to do. Now, how do we actually do that? And what are the things coming up? Number one, we need to get mainnet chain out, right? And so I know people are asking. I'm asking every day too. Trust me. And I ask myself in the morning when, and I just look at the ceiling, and before we get to work and we get it done, right? But it's right around the corner. It has been achieved internally. We're working on it right now. We're going to push it out soon. But step one is that, right? Step two is we need to actually begin to, bring these assets on chain and turn these things into tokens. It's a lot of work, unfortunately, to make this stuff happen. Both asset classes, like the things you have on here, things like collectibles, shoes, watches, wine, whiskey, art, whatever it is. Alternative assets, right? Things like oil, gold, solar, uranium, all these different types of things as well, right? Things that are emerging categories that are very powerful. And then also three is like traditional financial instruments, right? Again, equities, bonds, T-bills, private credit, those types of things, corporate debt, sovereign debt, whatever it is. Right. These are the types of things that we're bringing on chain and working with so many people in the community to help do. Right. And so the first step is bringing these things on chain. And you can think of this as like a machine that turns all of these icons into tokens. That's what we want to do. That's step one. Right. And because this is so many things, it's such a broad array of things. Right. We have to do these things in pieces. We can't do it all at once. Right? It's too much to consume. Ultimately, you want it to be successful because you want the people who are issuing these assets to find success on chain first, right? And because that creates more value for them and then allows them to go out and tell other people, right? And continue to grow that, right? So that's why it's so important for us. And so we're going to do this in phases. We'll probably start out with one category, really go deep and broad, right? We go deep there, and then we go to the next one and go to the next one, right? It doesn't mean we do them 100% in parallel. We'll have all of them at the same time. Again, Plume is a permissionless, open ecosystem. You can do whatever you want, right? And that's how I want it to be. But at least from a support and a go-to-market, like how we see the shaping out is through that, right? So we start with bringing things on chain, right, and just bringing sort of normal, usable, familiar things, right, but with an RWA-fi twist, meaning I can now put it into a lending market. I can loop against this thing. I can take out loans. I can stake it. I can put it into a swap, right, and an LP into this thing and earn yield against it, right, and allow you to sort of access normal things, but again, take equity. So I can bring it on chain. Now I can stake it and earn some more, right? That's the simple idea. Let's bring regular things on, right? So you can access this now through a crypto native UX without having to do KYC and a bunch of nonsense, right? Although you can do it if you want to, and begin to get a little bit of extra juice on it, right? Stake and learn from it. Earn yield and do other things from it, right? Number two, right, is once we have that, right, we can begin to really expand the types of things that we do. Right. So it's not just financial instruments. It's not just like classic stuff you're familiar with, because things you're not familiar with, things that are net new. Right. You ever wanted to like own a camel, right? Or participate in like camel racing through the internet, right? I remember a couple months ago, we were all racing hamsters on chain. I don't know if you guys remember that, right? Right. Like we can do this with camels now, right? Or we can, participate in uranium. You want to bet on oil, bet on that. Or if you want to like own a solar farm somewhere, right? You want to own own an oil field, right? And be able to earn yield that way, right? Because you're bullish on that particular thing. You should be able to do that, right? Or you want to own this fancy watch, or be able to, you want to spec on this, like this barrel of whiskey or whatever, all those things, right? So like that's step two, right? Really expand the set of things that you can interact with and continue. And that's a journey that will take forever. We'll continue to do. Like there's always going to be more stuff we're going to constantly be bringing on chain, right? But at some point when there's a broad mix of things, right, you have a good ecosystem of projects. You have a really sort of broad array of assets, and you have a really strong community across all these different things, right? What we really want to lean into now is core primitives, right, and financial instruments, right, and different types of tools that then blur these two things together, right? Number one, turn the real world into tokens. Number two, bring a bunch of crypto native things in as well. Number three, find ways and tools for people to glue these things together and create new things, right? So for example, a very simple idea, right? There's something in the real world called term transformation, right? And it's incredibly boring. It doesn't really matter. But what you can do with term transformation is you can take something like private credit, right? That's a longer duration thing, meaning you're supposed to hold it for 3 to 6 months, maybe longer, right? Which is a long time in crypto. I don't like holding anything for more than 2 hours, right? Let alone 6 months, right? That's why those things have trouble with crypto. But with term transformation, you can now cut this thing into 1 trillion different tokens that represent each minute of that particular thing. And you can bet on that, and you can speculate and hold it based on that. And you can now customize things to your own preference, right? That's an example of one tool. Right. Another thing is called structured products, right? Structured products means you can build multiple different things and turn it into a single product to consume, right? For example, the S&P, right? Or the Dow Jones, or these are structured, or like some new private credit thing, right? A lot of these private credit assets are like 10 assets under the hood, right? And they put it into one so you can consume it. They've done a lot of risk management, balancing, and all those things together, right? Another example is make it easy for you to create new products that are structured of all kinds of things, right? So maybe you want a little bit of this like rare art because you know it's going to appreciate in value, right? Maybe you want a little bit of stable coins because you still want some like yield-bearing T-bills, right? Maybe you want, we're really bullish on uranium because, we think nuclear is becoming a thing. Owning uranium is a good idea, right? And maybe you're really bullish also on ETH still, right? And you want to earn some of that restaking yield, right? You can now build and put all these things into a single box and now hold one token that represents all of that. While you're doing that and have this exposure, this customized exposure, you can still go to a market, take a loan against it, right? Go do other things. You can put into a lending pool, right? You can then put it into an LP pool, right? On a swap and earn passive yields from it, right? All these things, right? So these are new products, right? You can also create and mix and match with things like insurance, with things like term transformation, with things like, and you sort of take the Pendle experience that we all know today, which Pendle's yield stripping, right? And by doing yield stripping, we're able to really create sort of a new experience in crypto today, right? Through Pendle, you can really lever up your exposure to things very quickly, right? And that's been able to create a huge amount of wealth for people, and it's been really fun for most, right? That's one tool we can do, and there are 50 others that we're going to introduce. That sort of when you combine the speculative nature of things with real things, plus tools like Pendle, you create a very powerful ecosystem where you can really see a lot of net new products and yields and all kinds of activity like skyrocket 50, 100 times. And so that's what we want to do. Turn the reward into tokens, starting with normal things, then everything, right? Second is then bring a lot of crypto native experiences in, right? Shitcoin launchers, NFTs, all kinds of stuff. We have a bunch of those as well. And then you build tools and glue to put all those things together.
Chris, that was fucking fire. I'm not gonna lie. We are coming up to the top of the hour, and honestly, I think you painted a very beautiful picture of finance, a lot like a mad scientist, really. But you know what you're doing, right? And from everything we've talked in the last hour, from tokenizing Pokemon cards to turning my fantasy real estate into DeFi Legos, you've shown here today that Plume is not just building infrastructure, and that we're here. Your vision here is to build a whole new playground, right? Where money, assets, and the internet all collide. And I think the craziest part to me is that we're not even at day one. Like, technically, if you want to count, this is like day one. Like, this is just like ground zero, right? And to everybody here that's tuning in, we have over 10,000 viewers. I don't know if you know that, Chris.
No, I did not know that. Crazy.
Yeah, like our legendary goons, right? Like, you guys are kind of the reason why this rocket ship is taking off. Like, every meme, every alpha thread, every time you explain RWAs to your skeptical cousins, every time you do any of this, you're pushing this movement forward for us. And honestly, I genuinely think the world's going to wake up to what we're building. And when they do, we'll be miles ahead, right? So is there anything that you want to close out, Chris, before we end the broadcast here today?
Look, I think that the one thing I just want to say, I'm incredibly grateful and appreciate everybody spending time with us today, and not only just today, but throughout this entire journey of us building Plume together, right? We've always said from the start, Plume is about the people, it's about the community, it's about our ecosystem, right? And we're here all together to grow crypto together, right? Every single tweet, every single mention, every single thing that happens in the real world around Plume, all is because of all of us here. Right. And so, we couldn't be more grateful and for the community that's built around Plume, right? And the excitement that people have for some of this stuff, and also the hate. We're fine. We'll take it. We've done a bunch of things wrong here and there. We're really, we're open to hearing it. We want to change things as well when things don't go well, right? But overall, I just say, we're incredibly excited for what's coming. I think if you look at the world today, it's very clear that RWAs are one of the only and most durable narratives in all of crypto. There's no doubt in my mind, but also if you look anecdotally at the charts, right, and look at the fundamentals, not the token charts, but look at the fundamental charts around RWA growth over time, it's only gone up for the last 10 years, and it will continue to go up, right? And despite how shitty the market conditions might be or what's going on, these things continue to grow. That's why this is important. Right, we're going to continue to build, we'll continue to grow, we'll continue to expand, and not only that, at the token level, also RWA tokens in general as a category have been holding up well as well. And so just to say that, it's really great to see the excitement for what's happening and what everybody is doing here, right? And what we're hoping to do, right, is very simple. We want to turn the real world into tokens. We want to make things usable for crypto people. We're focused on crypto and the community. We are not building, right, Wall Street 2.0. We're not trying to just let you access the real world on chain. We're not trying to just do a bunch of random stuff and carbon copy the trad file in the world on chain, right? We want to make it easy for all of us to interact with the world, to have a good time on chain, and build a new future together that takes the world and crypto and combines it into one thing, right? And so today, it is a little bit, let's take something that happens in the world and put it on chain. Tomorrow, once that's here, we begin to blur the lines, we begin to create something net new. And what we're excited about is all of us together can really create and build new things that we've never thought of. And that's when this thing is really going to sing and be a ton of fun. So, just incredibly excited to have everybody here, right? It's been, 15 years or 10 years now to bring $3 trillion of assets on chain, right? And to grow crypto the size of this today. We have over 1,000 trillion to go, right? So we are nowhere. And we're still very, very early. And there's going to be ups and downs, lefts and rights, but there's one clear direction. If you zoom out on any time scale, right? I'm watching things in a 1 second because I always do that. But if you zoom out any time scale, 5, 10, 15 minutes, and hopefully ideally into the months and years, it's very clear this thing is going one direction. RWAs are going to really come in and dominate the future, right? And live and coexist with us in crypto. And so that's the exciting thing about what we're doing here, and it's just grateful to have everybody along for the ride.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chris. And you got, you heard it here first. This is your ecosystem, like your wealth revolution, right? And we're here to make history. So be sure to follow us on Twitter, at Plume Network. Spam those retweets, be loud, because at the end of the day, the future does not build itself. And you have to remember that Plume is for the people, right? So thank you for your time, Chris. I appreciate you, man.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, guys.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.